Nice, nice. Well, it is 5 after, so why don't we get started? We'll start with some beautiful music to begin our festival celebration.
Wonderful. Well, Chag Sameach, everybody. We're going to get started with V'ha'er Einenu, which you'll find on page 24 of the prayer book, and it is number 2 on there, and it's all about enlightening our eyes to the Torah and attaching our hearts to the commandments, being united in our hearts. So please feel free to join me. V'ha'er Einenu. V'ha'er Einenu b'toratecha v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha yachei levaveinu le'ahava u'yira et shemecha v'lo nevosh v'lo nikalem v'lo nikashem And we'll sing another song to bring us into our Simchat Torah service tonight. One that I'm sure many of you are familiar with the words, but in case you need them, they're on page 25. They're song number 5 in the book. Please join me for Hine Matov. Behold how good it is, how pleasant it is for us all to dwell here together. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim 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 shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov yadadai dadadadadadai. Hine matov yadadai dadadadadadai. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
Thank you, Cantor. Thank you so much. Chag Sameach, dear friends. Chag Sameach. So great to be with you all on this final major Jewish holiday, apart from Shabbat, this final major Jewish holiday in the Jewish month of Tishrei, the 7th month of the Jewish calendar. My goodness, there are 5 holidays, not counting Shabbat, 5 holidays in the span of 22, 23 days during this packed month of Tishrei. There's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, the 8th-day festival for those of you who celebrate Shmini Atzeret, and then Simchat Torah. So thank you all for being a part and continuing to join us and celebrate all these tremendous Jewish holidays during these 3 weeks, these 4 weeks. Simchat Torah is the last one. Simchat Torah literally means rejoicing of the Torah or rejoicing with the Torah. So Simchat Torah is truly a joyous, joyous time. We sing and we dance in honor of the Torah, our most precious possession, our Jewish treasure. Simchat Torah is like a wedding service between our people and our Torah. We read the Torah's last words and immediately turn to read its first words. We are all part of this never-ending circle of reading and study. We're all part of the family that is married Torah with joyful love. So let's bring in the light of this joyful festival. We turn to page 26 in our prayer booklet, page 26. And we are so honored to call upon Maggie Freed. And Cantor also has her candles, and anybody who has their candles, we invite you to please light the festival candles. Thank you, Maggie. They look wonderful. Cantor's lighting hers.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Yom Tov. And please join me with Shehechianu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
And we now turn to page 27. I realize as we're saying the page numbers, your PDF page numbers are very different. The reason that these page numbers are such as they are is because they're taken from a book. So it's page 27 of the book. I don't know what number it is on your PDF because I've got a hard copy, but you can see there at the top, there is to look for the top of the page, page 27. We come to our call to worship the Barachu. We invite you, if you are so moved, to please rise for our call to worship.
Barechu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam vaed. Hamevorach leolam vaed.
And please be seated, everybody. We're at the bottom of page 27, and Cantor and I are going to be sharing. We invite you to join in the responsive with Cantor. We're going to be sharing some wonderful teachings about what Torah is like and some major themes of the Torah, foundational, essential themes of Torah. So we begin at the bottom of page 27. The Torah is God's great gift to the house of Israel.
Israel without Torah is like a body without a soul.
Like water, it cleanses and is refreshing.
Like wine, it gladdens the heart.
Like a crown, it raises us high.
higher than the throne of kings and queens.
When Torah entered the world, freedom entered it.
The whole Torah exists only to establish peace.
Its highest teaching is love and kindness.
What is hateful to you, do not do to another person.
As Hillel said, that is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. May we go and learn it.
Those who study Torah sustain the world.
Honoring one another, doing acts of kindness, making peace. These are our highest duties.
And the study of Torah leads to them all.
We rejoice in Torah. It is our life, the length of our days. Praise be the God who teaches Torah to our people Israel.
We turn now to the Ve'ahavta, the watchword of our people. And you can find it on page 28 of your prayer book. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
And those words of the Shema come directly from the Torah. It's amazing how many words of Torah are included in our regular prayers. The folks who put together our prayer book, beginning in the 9th century, the ancient rabbis and scholars, they looked into biblical text and to include in a prayer service. So of course, the Shema, as Cantor said, the watchword of our faith. Directly after that, if we turn to page 29, and in just a moment, we're going to invite somebody very special to chant this. We've got also a continuation of Deuteronomy 6. The Ve'ahavta occurs right after the Shema. And then the second paragraph of the Ve'ahavta is from the book of Numbers. So we're going to see there are so many sections of Torah and biblical verses. So Torah in the broad sense, Torah being the 5 books of Moses, but then Torah in its broadest sense means any Jewish text, any Jewish teaching. And there are so many words of Torah in our regular prayer service. So we are so honored now on page 29 to call upon an upcoming bar mitzvah, actually our next bar mitzvah in October. We're so honored to call upon Leo Gersh. There he is. Hi, Leo. Hi, Andy.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. So Leo, whenever you are ready, if you will lead us, we're going to join in at home, but we're going to stay muted. So we're going to be with you as you chant words of Torah with the Ve'ahavta, whenever you're ready.
All right. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meyodecha v'chayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzarecha hayom al levavecha, veshinantam levanecha, vedibarta bam, veshivtecha bavetecha, uvleftecha vaderek, uvshofbecha uvkumecha, ushartam leot al yadecha, vechayula totafot bein einecha, uchtavtam al mezuzot betecha, uvisharecha. Leman tiskeru ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'yitem kedoshim lelochechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, le'yot lachem le'elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Yasher Koach. Yes, let's hear it for Leo. Leo, what's your preference? You like Sacred Pac-Man? Do you like the COVID Sacred Wash Your Hands and applause? Or do you like the sign language? Which one do you like?
The Sacred Pac-Man is always my favorite.
All right, so Sacred Pac-Man it is. Hope you can see everybody doing it for you. And we appreciate so much you being with us tonight. We can't wait to celebrate you becoming a bar mitzvah in October. Thank you, and thank you, Andy, for being with us tonight. Thank you so much. Well, so speaking of words of Torah, we are getting ready, Cantor's getting ready to lead us all in the chanting of the Michamocha, again, directly from the Torah. We're going to look at it a little bit later. It's quite amazing to see how it's laid out in the Torah scroll. But the Song of the Sea, Shirat Hayam Michamocha, is from Exodus 15. And so at the bottom of page 30, to lead into these words of Torah that we're going to chant, that our ancestor chanted long ago. Bottom of page 30, Torah is light for all the world to show, oh, well, let's do this together. Let's do this. So at home, if you'll join me at home, and please, we'll stay muted, but please join me at home as we, oh, it looks like it's cut off a little bit. That's interesting. Very interesting. So join me up to broke out in, and I'll finish it. There's one word. Actually, there's one word. Song is the one word. You're right. That was cut off. That was our mistake when we put together the PDF. They didn't break out in hives. They didn't break out in other ailments. They broke out in song. So if you'll please join me as a lead into our Song of Redemption. Torah is light for all the world to show its peoples the way to freedom. We will give thanks. They will give thanks. We will give thanks, as did our people at the Sea of Reeds. Miriam led them, and all Israel broke out in song.
Please join me with Michamocha, which you'll find on page 31. Lai 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 ya lai 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 ya lai 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 ya lai 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 ya lai 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 Michamocha ba'elim Adonai Michamocha nehedar b'kodesh Nora tehilot osefele Nora tehilot osefele Who is like you? Adonai, who is like you? Adonai, Malechutecha ra'u vanecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe ze Elianu ve'amru Adonai
Well, let's share in some more wisdom found in the Torah. Again, Torah meaning the 5 books of Moses, as well as all of Jewish teaching. In this next section on page 32, the Cantor and I are going to lead responsively. And again, we invite you to join Cantor. The responsive readings are quotes from the book of Leviticus, the prophet Micah, the Psalms, more Leviticus, Pirkei Avot, the Mishnah, again, in the broader sense of Torah, the Mishnah, book of Proverbs, so much wisdom in Torah. So top of page 32, what is Torah?
Love your neighbor as yourself.
What is mitzvah?
Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your God.
What is Torah?
Depart from evil and do good. Be just and do what is right. Do not insult the deaf or place a stumbling block before the blind.
Shimon ben Gamliel, the great grandson of Hillel, said in Pirkei Avot, and you may remember from Sukkot, Shimon ben Gamliel also was a great juggler and acrobat and a wise person as well. He taught the world is sustained by 3 things: by truth, by justice, and by peace.
The world depends on 3 things: on Torah, on service, and on loving deeds.
What is the way of Torah?
Its ways are ways of pleasantness. All its paths are peace.
All its paths are peace. So we celebrate with great joy the celebration of the cycle of the reading of the Torah. We do that on the festival of Simchat Torah, similar to what we do with other festivals. It is traditional on Jewish festivals like Passover and Shavuot, Sukkot, Hanukkah, Rosh Chodesh, Simchat Torah, to sing particular psalms. These are called Hallel psalms. Hallel literally means praise. So hallelujah means praise God. We're going to do a few hallelujahs, I think. And we have a little, I'm sorry, we don't have a hallelujah. But anyway, we'll be thinking hallelujah. We're going to turn to page 33 as Cantor leads us in Psalm 118, page 33 in our prayer booklet.
Hodu hodu la Adonai ki tov, ki leolam chasto. Hodu hodu la Adonai ki tov, ki leolam chasto. Yom mana Yisrael, ki leolam chasto. Yom
Thank you, Cantor. We now come to the highlight of Simchat Torah, Seder Kriyat Torah, our Torah service. Now, if we were in person for Simchat Torah, in our temple sanctuary, we would be marching around the sanctuary 7 times. Who knows, if you'll put in the chat box, what do we call a circuit? Each of those circuits that we make around the sanctuary during Simchat Torah. Does anybody know what we call that in Hebrew? Maggie actually used the word earlier before in reference to a song that we sing. Maggie, you want to put that word in again for?
Yep. She got it.
Oh, great. Yes, hakafah. So hakafah means to go around or to make a circle, to circle. And so if we were in sanctuary, we'd be doing 7. Yes, George remembers the holy pretzel. That's how we refer to it. Rick is smiling. He knows. Leo will hear that word too in a couple of weeks for rehearsal. Yes, we make a holy pretzel in the way that we march. We make a big pretzel in the way that we march in our hakafot. So 7, lucky number 7, 7 days of the week, Shabbat, we would do 7. Now, because we're not in person, we are blessed, staying safe. We are blessed to be in our virtual sanctuary. We're going to make the whole world our sanctuary tonight, and we're going to do 7 hakafot from around the world on 7 continents. Now, we were talking earlier about how fun it would be for our young people joining us to name the 7 continents to see if they want to practice their geography. We can open this up to girls and boys of all ages. Do we want to try to get in? What are the 7 continents that we can look forward to doing our virtual hakafot around the world? Anybody want to start typing them in?
I learned it to the melody of Frere Jacques when I was growing up. I learned there are 7 continents to that melody, and I still remember that to this day.
And did you do it in French or did you do it in English?
No, I did not do it in French.
All right. Well, Cantor, we're intrigued. What do we think? I haven't seen anybody put in the chat box yet. Do you want to give us a taste of how you learned it?
Sure, I could do that.
Okay.
So it goes, there are 7 continents, Europe, Asia, Africa, North and South America, Australia and Antarctica. So that's how I learned it. Although nowadays we don't say Antarctica, we say Oceania.
Oceania, very nice. I'm curious, I think Leo was still with us. I'm curious to know if somebody of the next generation heard it that way as well. Has anybody heard, have you heard that song? Leo, have you heard that song?
Maybe it's
I don't think I have.
What was that?
I don't think I have heard it.
Oh, you don't think you have? Yeah, it might be a Midwestern thing or just my
could
school.
be a Illinois thing. Could be a Chicago, Windy City thing, Cantor. Has anybody heard that? All right, Cantor, we love it. We're gonna always remember it, and thank you for sharing that. So we're gonna take our virtual tour of the hakafot around the world in just a moment. Before we do so, does anybody happen to have, Cantor, you got your little Torah? Did anybody have a little Torah close to them? All right, Cantor's gonna march. Jan is pointing to something on the shelf. So Cantor has her little Torah. I'm gonna go get mine. Rick might have one from Isabel. Rick, you got one too? Sweet, I see it. Oh, nice. Oh, and look at Maggie's. It's in a lucite case where you can like roll it. Nice. So what we're gonna do is we invite you to lift your Torah for the first hakafah with Cantor, because of the video that we're gonna show. Cantor's in our sanctuary during the first hakafah. So we invite you to also, use yours as well for that hakafah. And if you feel so inclined, and Cantor changed her screen. I'm going to change mine too.
Yeah, I think we're gonna start with the Shema and Echad just to start us into the service.
So yeah, we're going to do Shema and Echad in just a second. Cantor, I'm going to do, because it's traditional to also do white for Simchat Torah, to keep those Torah scrolls in white. So I'm going to change my background if I can find it.
There we go. I got it.
There, you got it? Great. So I've got mine too. So we're going to open up our arcs with the white. We're going to ask those who have a Torah scroll, if you feel inclined to march around your room, don't be shy. We'd love to see it. And we are now, before we do the Hakafah, we are going to do the Shema Echad, which you can find on page 36. If you're so inclined, please rise for the Shema. And for those of you who have your Torah scroll, feel free to rise and dance around the room. And then when you're done with the first Hakafah, feel free to have a seat and everybody to enjoy all of our videos around the world, our Hakafot around the world.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
And we're going to get that video up in just a moment. If you'd like to sit, please feel free to have a seat. But if you have a Torah and you would like to dance, we invite you to dance with us.
And stay tuned for our special guest for Antarctica at the end.
Oh, I wonder who's going to be in Antarctica. Well, we want to thank Cantor, Alyssa, for putting that together, finding all those Hakafot from around the world, including Antarctica. Thank you, Cantor. That was wonderful.
It was my pleasure.
Well, one of the other highlights of celebrating Simchat Torah at Temple Sinai, along with other congregations in North America. I don't know if they do this in other parts of the world. I don't think the Penguins do it this way, but what we like to do at Temple Sinai when we're in person is we like to unroll an entire Torah scroll in our social hall. We all hold it. We put the children in the middle so everybody can see the words and how a Torah is laid out. Now, we were thinking, well, how are we going to do that virtually this year? We want to keep everybody safe and be at home for Simchat Torah. And, we want to not be so close together, holding a Torah scroll with COVID now. So Maggie Freed had a wonderful idea, and that was to do a virtual unrolling. Well, she literally unrolled the entire Torah scroll with the help of her husband, Jan, who was with us, and some friends and some other temple members. And we have that on video, an entire Torah scroll unrolled. So we're going to look at that now. We're going to walk through the Torah and stop at particular highlights like we would do if we were in the social hall. So we have this on video. We're going to make some stops along the way so we can reflect upon some real highlights in the Torah. So let's see. So Jason, if you are ready. And so here's how they did it. All the way from the top of the hallway, the north hallway, all the way to the bottom of the social hall, they unrolled it this way for all of us to be able to see and for us to walk through it virtually. And so you can see, and this is our small Torah. And now this is the beginning. So if we were to, start marching around or showing you different sections, here it is right at the beginning, Bereshit in the beginning. We invite you to take a look. So notice how certain letters are larger than others. Certainly in any Torah scroll, the first letter of the Torah, that bet, is enlarged. And you'll notice some crowns at the top, these 3 prongs or 2 prongs at certain letters. Those are called tagin, and these are adornments. Certain letters get these tagin at the top of them. So it's a way to beautify the Torah scroll, to make it even more beautiful. A Torah scroll, of course, is handmade. I can't do it. I don't think any of us can do it. You have to be specially trained to write a Torah scroll from hand, handwritten. The name of that person is called who knows the name? Put it in the chat box. Who do we call the person who writes a Torah scroll from hand? Does anybody know? I know you've heard the word before. A sofer. Thank you, Maggie. Sofer literally means a writer. So a Sefer Torah, Sefer means a book, and a sofer is a person who writes a book. So a sofer has to learn over 4,000 rules, over 4,000 rules to be able to even begin to write a Torah scroll. Everything from how to do the parchments to what's a kosher parchment to what's a kosher ink color. I'll give you a hint. I love to write in blue. If somebody were to write a Torah scroll in blue, it is not kosher. It must be in black ink, and it must be certain natural ingredients to make that black ink. So 4,000 rules. So here's the beginning of Bereshit. You can see how beautiful a Torah scroll is. Jason, thank you. Let us continue in the book of Genesis, the first book of the Torah. And this is going to go pretty quickly, but stories of the creation of the world. There, look how quick. Adam and Eve, Noah's Ark, the matriarchs and patriarchs, Joseph and his brothers, those amazing stories of Jacob's children, Joseph and his brothers. That's what you'll find as you scroll through the first book of the Torah in Bereshit. Now we stop here because you will notice, looking up close, we see Hebrew letters. If you know Hebrew vowels, there are no Hebrew vowels in a Torah. There is no punctuation. There are no endings, end of the verse, sof pasuk. There are no cantillation marks. There are no commas. There are no semicolons. There is no bold, no underlining, nothing. All that you have in a Torah scroll is black letters and white space. Now, there are at least about 660 places for white space. The white space does act as a marker of a thematic section. You're going to see some of that white space on a line. Sometimes there's white space on a line separating letters on a line, words on a line, and sometimes there's white space separating, the next section of Torah. That's actually called a Parashah. So there are over 650 Parashot sections, different than the 54 Parashot of the sections of a weekly Torah portion, but it's also called the Parashah. Now, a major section break, in addition to thematic and paragraph returns, in a sense, because there are paragraph returns in the Torah scroll, in a sense. There are major breaks. Who knows, right in, one of your best friends has the last name Sofer, Rick. So there you go. Maybe somebody in the family was a Sofer. I imagine so. Who knows what this is? So this is, I talked about a paragraph return as being a section break. This is like, 3, 4, hitting enter. Who knows what this white space signifies? Yes, Randy, it's the beginning of a book. It's the section break in a Torah separating the 5 books. So as Randy said, this is Exodus. We now come to Exodus. The Hebrew word for the second book of Torah is called Shemot. Shemot doesn't mean Exodus. Shemot means these are the names. And if you look at the Hebrew, the second word of the paragraph returns, it says Shemot. Thank you, Jason. That second word means these are the names Bnei Yisrael, of the children of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob. So anyway, that's why Exodus is the theme. Shemot is one of the first important words, names. So as we go through the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus, major highlights, of course, Moses at the burning bush, the Jewish people being enslaved, God saying to Moses at the burning bush, let my people go. The story, the Passover story, it's all in there. And then lo and behold, look what we come to as we zoom in. This is what we chanted earlier. This is the Micha Mocha Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea. Notice how it's laid out. It is laid out. Please type in the chat box. Why do you think it's laid out in this special way? So here you do have this type of, this parashah, these section spaces. Why do you think it's laid out this way for the Micha Mocha? There are 2 very good reasons. There's one main reason and then sort of a midrash reason. Does anybody know why this song, and I'll give you a hint, this song is laid out this way? Okay, right. So Leo, thank you. Right. So this is like the midrash, the visual. It looks like the splitting of the sea, right? It looks like you have 2 walls of water on the side, and then in the middle, the Jewish people marching through. So it sort of simulates in a way visually the 2 walls of water, the miracle of the Red Sea, the Jewish people marching through. So that's a great sort of midrash, a great way to understand it. The other way to understand why there's a different layout here is it is a song. And you're going to see that when you come to a song, that it's laid out with these spaces in them. Yeah. Oh, nice, George. It's a song. The layout provides rhythm. Okay, nice. So it's letting us know sort of the flow and a rhythm to it. We're going to see another song at the end. I think there are 2 main songs in the Torah scroll, and we'll get to the other one later. But we're still in Exodus chapter 15. And by the way, you can see the song isn't just 2 lines, 2 verses. It's about I wrote down, I think it's 19 verses. Yeah, it's a 19-verse song. There it is. The Micha Mocha that we sing is 2 main verses, but it's a 19-verse song. But we take out the first 2, or the first 2, the main 2 in the middle. All right, let's keep going, Jason. Exodus has so much great stuff. We're going to see, you can see some of that white space I was telling you about. Here's a lot of white space. So this white space, again, thematically letting us know we're coming up with a new idea, a major new idea. Take a look at these Hebrew letters that repeat. You can see a lamed and an aleph repeating 1, 2, at least 6 times, if not more. Who knows what a lamed and an aleph, what that spells? If you put in the chat box, what does that spell in Hebrew and what does that spell in English, if you know that word? Yes, Maggie gave us the English. No, 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 low, 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 no, no, no. Well, we've got a number of no-nos in the 10 Commandments. So Exodus 20, the 10 Commandments. And so major typographical white space let us know this is something very special. So again, you can only do it through white space. So laid out very special. So let us continue. Jason, yes, you shall not do certain things. So we're traveling through the book of Exodus. So we have another section break. And when you get all these paragraph returns, we know it's the end of a book, the beginning of a new book. Who would like to write in the name of the third book? If you know it in Hebrew, I'd love to see the Hebrew, and we'll also do the Greek, or actually it's Latin, derived from the Greek. Leviticus is the Latin based on a Greek word, which I can't pronounce, liutikon. And yes, Vayikra, very good, Vayikra. Notice the word Vayikra. Jason, if you'll point at the first word of Vayikra all the way to the right, take a look at how the aleph is tiny. It's almost like a superscript. Look at that. So there are times in the Torah where the scribe will purposely take a letter and make it larger or smaller, like the big bet in Bereshit. There's a small aleph in Vayikra. And there's a beautiful midrash, a beautiful rabbinic teaching about this. So Vayikra literally means, and he called, and God called to Moses. Vayikra, and God called, all sort of part of the word Vayikra. Well, Moses, the Torah says in Numbers, was the most humble person on earth. The Torah tells us Moses was the most humble person. Moses was, our tradition says, dictating these words. He was the first sofer. He was the first scribe. And he was dictating traditionally the ideas that Moses dictated from God. And, you know, more modern times, we say Torah was written by human beings, inspired by God. But here's the Midrash. The Midrash is Moses was dictating, and he was so humble, he didn't like to be singled out, that God called to Moses, like, oh, what makes Moses so special? So Moses wanted to use the word Vayikar, which means, and he happened, God happened upon Moses, almost if by accident. God just happened upon Moses. God liked Moses' humility and says, Moses, I like what you want to do, but I prefer the word Vayikra. And God called. So let's split the difference, Moses. You don't want the aleph, I want the aleph big, we'll make the aleph small. So that's the midrash, the compromise between God and Moses, and a teaching about the small letter. What is the significance of the elongated letters? Great question, Sally. This is purely, again, a scribe. This is one of the 4,000 rules. Notice the text is, we would call it today in Microsoft Word or Google Docs or type layout, justified. The left margin and the right margin are, it goes all the way to the end of the margin. It's not like, you know, it's not a ragged right or a ragged left. So to get that justified text, the scribe, the only way the scribe can get those letters equal on both sides of the column, got to stretch letters. Got to stretch letters. And that's why there are elongated wide letters to make those columns justified. Part of one of the 4,000 rules. Great question. There was another question. George said, what are the two olives? George, did we answer that question? I think. Hopefully we answered that. If George, if not, if you'll put in the chat box again. So book of Leviticus, almost half the mitzvot are in the book of Leviticus. Almost a half of the 613 mitzvot are all in this tiny little book of Leviticus, sometimes called the priestly manual after the Levites manual. Great, George. I'm glad we answered that. So let's keep going in Leviticus. A lot of mitzvot, a lot of sacrifice, animal and grain sacrifice, but beautiful sections toward the middle, Leviticus 19, you shall be holy, for I am holy, love your neighbor as yourself. Beautiful teachings in the holiness code that we read on, traditionally read on Yom Kippur in the Reform world. So now if we go to the bottom of the next one, Jason, I think you got it there. There we go. So now we've gone through the book of Leviticus. We're now in the fourth book. Who would like to put in the chat box the name of the fourth book of the Torah, Hebrew or English? We would love both. And I'll give you a hint. The Hebrew, if you can read Hebrew, it's the fifth word. Bamidbar, very good, Maggie, the fifth word. Bamidbar, Sinai, the next word. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe Bamidbar Sinai, and God spoke to Moses in the Sinai desert, in the tent of meeting, the book of Numbers. Now again, Numbers is thematic. So the English is more thematic. The Hebrew is based on one of the first important words in the wilderness, in the desert. So the book of Numbers, a lot of rebellion against Moses and Aaron and Miriam. A lot of people are wandering in the wilderness. They're journeying in the wilderness. They're upset. They're tired. They're hungry. They're thirsty. So Jason, let's continue in the book of Numbers. There is a real gem in the book of Numbers that we're going to get to, that one would think would be in the book of Leviticus, but it is in fact in the book of Numbers. And there it is again. The white space is letting us know in a short span with a lot of white space. Again, very important, almost like a poem, very, very poetic in its structure. The Yivarecha, the priestly blessing. That's why I say it's really appropriate for the book of Leviticus, but it's part of the narrative in the book of Numbers, where God shares with Moses and Aaron, this is the way to bless the Jewish people. Yivarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, and you can see that right there in that white space. 3 words, then 5 words, then 7 words. Very poetic, very symmetrical, building upon the last verse. It's got a real poetic structure to it. So there we go. The priestly blessing. May God bless you and protect you. May God's face shine upon you, be gracious to you. May God lift up God's countenance literally and grant you shalom, grant you peace. So let's keep moving, Jason. We're making our way. Numbers, 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 all of Numbers. And the final book. Again, the word for it in the Hebrew is the second word. What do we know as the final word? And by the way, this one is a Greek word, which means second, a copy or repeated law. Divarim, literally words. Divarim, words or things. These are the words. Ele ha-devarim, these are the words. And the repeated law is what Deuteronomy means. It's a copy, it's a repetition that Moses does of some things that came before. So we're going to see some repetition. We're going to see a lot of new stuff too. This is in Moses's voice. The one book of the Torah that is Moses talking. The other books are in the third person. This is Moses talking. And sometimes obviously Moses is in the third person too. So Jason, let's continue in this book and we're going to read it in just a moment. We're going to read the end and then Cantor's going to read the beginning as we do on Simchat Torah. So we're marching through Deuteronomy. And when we get to the 5th chapter of Deuteronomy, that looks familiar. I see lows, but with a vav in front of it. Villo, low, low, villo, and no, and no, and no. So this is a repetition of the Ten Commandments. And the major change, and this is why, by the way, we have 2 Shabbat candles, not 1. Does anybody know? And put in the chat box, why do we have 2 Shabbat candles instead of 1? At least 2. We can have 3, we can have 4, but you need at least 2. This is the reason. This repetition of the 10 Commandments, a change is made in Deuteronomy to the 10 Commandments. Does anybody know the change? It says in Exodus, to zachor, to remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. To remember the Sabbath day. Here it says shamor, to observe the Sabbath day. So we have 2 candles for both mitzvot of Shabbat, to both zachor, to remember, and to shamor, to observe. That's why we have 2 candles. Very good, Carolyn. Thank you. Shamor v'zachor for Shabbat. All right. Well, the chapter right after the 10 Commandments, chapter 6, a very important chapter in Deuteronomy. Let's continue on, and we'll see chapter 6. It's very close. Look at that. There it is. Hope everybody can see that. It's the 3rd line down, like on our screen. It says Shema Yisrael. That is the Shema right there. Notice the enlarged ayin in the word Shema, the first word. And Jason, if you go to the enlarged dalet in the 6th word for the word echad, there's a midrash about what that means. You put those 2 letters together, an ayin and a dalet, and you get the word aid, which means witness. When we say the word Shema, we are witnessing that and affirming that God is one. Ayin dalet. There's another reason it's an enlarged dalet. We'll save that for another time, not to be confused with a large resh, which would give a whole different meaning to this text. So that's another reason the dalet's enlarged. Cantor, it also spells the word odd, until. Cantor, what's your teaching? Do you have a teaching about what's the significance of until?
I would say, we're used to saying Leolam Va'ed, like that's so ed in that one is also from the odd, from until. So kind of like the foreverness of it all.
Okay, until, a sense of a time continuing on. Very nice. Yeah. I like that. Wonderful. Check out what the next word is after the word echad with the large dalet. It is, in fact, the v'ahavta. Now, here's what I find interesting. You know how we sing the Shema and afterwards we silently, or in a smaller volume, a softer voice, we say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Not in the Torah. Not in the Torah. That was a rabbinical creation. They added it to our prayers. And that is one of the reasons we say it in a softer voice. For those people who say Baruch Shem in a softer voice, more of a whisper, because it's not in the Torah. That's the practical reason. There is a midrash about why we do it, related to our ancestor Jacob and his children, that they responded to him. Or that was Jacob's response to them in a whisper because he was on his deathbed. But that's a midrash. But I think the practical reason is we say Baruch Shem softer because the rabbis recognized they were adding, and it didn't occur in the Torah, but the v'ahavta of course does. So we do the v'ahavta right after Baruch Shem Kavod, and there is the v'ahavta right there. And again, we add a second verse to the v'ahavta. The rabbis added a second verse from the book of Numbers. A second paragraph, which isn't here, but it's earlier in Numbers. But here is the main paragraph about loving God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our might. So there is, again, Deuteronomy, major book of the Torah. Let's keep going, Jason. By the way, I hope this is helpful to everybody. We're spending some time with this, probably more time than we would spend in person, because the kiddos might not be able to absorb all of this info. But making our way through Deuteronomy. Ah, nice, Justin. Thank you for that teaching. There's a story, a midrash, that the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, on Yom Kippur would say it aloud, and that's why on Yom Kippur, Cantor did say Baruch Shem Kavod, nice and loud, 3 times. So that is the one time that traditionally one can say it nice and loud. Very nice, Justin. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, look at this. We have another sort of layout. Now it's 2 columns. It doesn't look like the Micha Mocha, but it is 2 columns letting us know it is another song. This is called the Song of Moses. Toward the end of his life, the Jewish people are getting ready to enter the promised land. Moses is not able to make the trip. He's going to be buried outside the promised land. And this is Moses's very poetic words to the Jewish people in Deuteronomy 32, chapter 32. This is called the Song of Moses. So there's Moses' song again. Look at those long letters. Look at those huge long letters. Again, just to make the column left and right justified, the only reason. Okay, let us keep going toward the end of Deuteronomy. We're just going to go 2 chapters over. Deuteronomy ends in the 34th chapter. Okay, these are the last words, the last lines and verses of Deuteronomy. Now, some of these are big just because the Sofer that did this Torah, and by the way, this Torah is a little bit different. This Torah, came from Russia. It's over 100 years old. Those words are not enlarged in a regular Torah scroll, but they are enlarged like Navi, Moses is a prophet. Though that's not the significance to it. Now, there is significance to the last word, Yisrael. The Torah ends with the word Israel. Begins with the creation of the world. It ends now with Israel. It's gone from the universal to the more particular Jewish people. Now, just one last word about this, and then we're going to chant it in a second. The last word of the Torah is a lamed. The first word of the Torah that Cantor is going to chant after we do this is a bet. Put those 2 words together, lamed and vet. Oh, you're going to do it right now, Jason. All right. There it is. Lamed and vet. They spell the word lev, heart. So there's obviously another teaching. The heart that we bring to the Torah, the heart that the Torah is wanting us to cultivate for other people in the world, and the love that God has for us, the love that we have for God, back to the V'ahavta. So that's just a midrash on some of the lettering. So Jason, let's go back just a little bit to the first section of, or actually, I guess I'll share the screen, Jason. I guess we decided that I'll share the screen. So again, thanks to Maggie and Jan and friends for putting that together for us. And so we can march through it. Hope you found that virtual tour meaningful to you, and hopefully you learned something that you didn't know before. I am going to, let's see, Jason, let's do this. If you
Rabbi, don't we want to call up the blessings first?
We do, and that's where I was going, Cantor. We would be honored to introduce Maggie, who's going to do the Aliyah. So Maggie is going to lead us in the blessing. She'll do the blessing before and then the blessing after. We're going to, as Simchat Torah is, as everybody who does Simchat Torah, you end with the last words of Deuteronomy, and then you go back to the beginning, and you go immediately to Genesis, which is how we're going to do it. We are honored to have our ritual chair, Maggie Freed, do the Aliyah tonight. And for those who would like to follow along at home with Maggie, we'll stay muted. Jason will put up on page 40. Jason will put that up.
Baruchu et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Varach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
And I am going to screen share so people can follow along with me. Hopefully, can you all see that nice and big? See that on your screens? So my pointer is going to become a yod, and we're right here at the end, and it's talking about how Moses' stature as a Navi, there's never arisen in Israel a prophet like Moses, literally, who God knew panim el panim, face to face, as evidenced by all the signs and wonders which God sent him to do in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh, his courtiers, and all of the land, and also evidenced Moses' stature by the great strong hand and by the awesome great things that Moses did in the sight of all Israel. And that's what it says. And we will do it now in the Hebrew. So we're going to go back up to this line. Amen. Velo kam navi od beYisrael kemoshe asher yeda'o Adonai panim el panim lechol ha'otot v'hamoftim asher shelacho Adonai לעשות בארץ מצרים, לפרעה ולכל עבדיו, ולכל ארצו, ולכל היד החזקה, ולכל המורא הגדול, אשר עשה משה לעיני כל ישראל. And traditional for all of us to say, Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. May we be strong, and be strengthened and strengthen one another.
And here is our Bereshit, our Genesis story at the beginning. Just to translate briefly, at the beginning, God created the heavens and the land was formless and void, and there was darkness on the face of the deep. And God, the Spirit of God hovered on the face of the waters, and God spoke, "Let there be light," and there was light, and God saw that the light was good, and God separated between the light and between the darkness, and God called to the light day, and to the darkness called night. And there was evening and there was morning one day. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, ve'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu, ve'choshech al pnei tehom, ve'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim, vayomer Elohim yehi or, vayehi or. Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov, vayavdel Elohim ben haor uven hachoshech, vayikra Elohim laor yom v'lachoshech kara laila, vayhi erev vayhi boker yom echad.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Maggie. Yasher Kochech. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Cantor. Thank you, everybody. Well, let's symbolically return our Torah to the ark. And Cantor, if you want to, we can add what we do, what you'd find in the sanctuary after Simchat Torah. We change our Torah scrolls back from white to blue. So if we want to, we can change our screens now as we get ready for Eitz Chaim, which you can find on page 43. And Cantor's got her Torah scroll. Oh, very quick, Cantor. Okay. Please join us in singing Eitz Chaim.
Eitz Chaim hi למחזיקים בה לתומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh yameinu Chadesh yameinu kekedem.
Okay, we're going to close up our Aron, our holy ark, and we are at this time, as we do when we come together and we worship, we're going to say prayers of healing for people we know who are sick or injured, people who are in need of a healing of body and a healing of spirit. We invite you to please join us in this Mishabarak prayer of healing.
Mishabarak avoteinu Makor habracha leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
At this time, we invite you to, yes, place in the chat box names of people you know who are in need of healing. Our Mishabarak prayer of healing is for them. Our prayer is for all those listed in the chat box and also for the folks listed on our Mishabarak page that we share together each week. Our Mishabarak prayer is for these temple members in need of healing, these family members who are in need of healing, and all of these friends and coworkers who are in need of healing as we continue our Mishabarak prayer of healing together.
Mishabarak imoteinu Makor habracha la'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We pray that they are all healed. And again, our thanks to our Director of Education, Carolyn Moramuso, who helped Maggie and Jan unroll the Torah scroll and allow us to take this virtual tour, this Simchat Torah, and Gino Thomas, who also was helpful with that, and to Maggie and Jan. Thank you all so much. Well, our worship, as you know, is never complete until we think of those people that we've loved and lost, who have passed away, yet they very much remain with us in our hearts and our minds and our souls as an abiding blessing. We invite you now, if you're thinking of a loved one who has passed away, if you're thinking of them now, we invite you to please put their name in the chat box. Our Kaddish prayer is for them. And we invite you to please rise for our Kaddish prayer as the names continue in the chat box, as we think of loved ones who have died. We thank God that they were with us as together we pray. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah
Amen.
v'alma divarach hirute v'amlich malchute v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chaye dekol Beit Yisrael v'agalau v'zman kari v'imru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach leolam u'lalmei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudesha berichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata de'amiran bi'alma v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom bebroma hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn. May we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. Together we say, Amen.
Amen.
And please be seated, everybody.
It's our custom to sing together, join on a prayer for peace at the conclusion of our Kaddish prayer, Oseh Shalom. Please join me at the bottom of the page. Oseh Shalom bimroma, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom bimroma, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, Oseh shalom bimroma, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru, Amen.
We want to again thank you all for being with us tonight. A special thanks again to Leo Gersh, our bar mitzvah coming up soon. And Andy, thank you. Leo, thank you for being us. This was a school night, and Leo's with us till about 8:30. So thank you so much. It means so much to us. We can't wait to celebrate with you in the weeks ahead. The second weekend of October, we'll be celebrating with Leo and with his family. And again, thank you all for being here. We're going to say Kiddush as we do, and then our closing song, Kiddush, because it's a festival. Simchat Torah is a festival. So I think, Cantor, you've got your oh.
Just
No?
a short Kiddush.
Okay, short Kiddush. Great, great.
If anyone has your grape juice or wine handy and you want to join me, please raise your glass. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen l'chaim.
L'chaim. And just a moment, we come to our closing song. We want to invite everybody this Friday. It's our first family service that Religious School is leading. Our sixth graders are leading us this Friday, October 1st, in Sanctuary. So please join us for that.
Well, our closing song for tonight, if you turn into your prayer packet that we sent for tonight, it's on page 25 towards the beginning again. It's called Sisu Visimhu. It's one of the songs we have specifically for Simchat Torah. So please join me, even though you're on mute, please join me on Sisu Visimhu. Sisu Visimhu Visimchat Torah, Unu Kavod La Torah. Sisu Visimhu Visimchat Torah, Unu Kavod La Torah. Ay 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 Sisu Visimhu Visimchat Torah, Unu Kavod La Torah. Sisu Visimhu Visimchat Torah, Unu Kavod La Torah. Ay 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 Chag Sameach, everybody.
Chag Sameach, and thank you, Jill. Put in the chat box. Ruth Goldstein is beginning a wonderful program, Wise Aging, tomorrow night. Please join us for that as well. Let's all unmute and wish each other a Chag Sameach, and say hi to everybody.
There's Rachel.
Sameach, everyone.
Yeah, everyone.
Chag Sameach.
Hey, George.
Also, hi, Mom and Dad.
Oh, nice. Oh, your parents are with us. Hello. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Dr. and Mrs. Rosenbaum, David and Donna. Welcome.
And hi to Anastasia. I'm glad you could join us. I hope you got something out of it.
Yes.
More than something. Thank you so much for
Great,
having me.
wonderful. You're always
Welcome. Please join us anytime, Anastasia. It's great to have you with us.
Chag Sameach.
Good night.
Thank you very much for including Leo.
Oh,
Louis,
our
it was so wonderful
pleasure.
to have him.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Leo.
much.